Gary, good afternoon. I know that often you've said you don't like to speak about managers losing their job, but did this feel like the only solution, the only choice left for Manchester United?
I thought it was, unfortunately, I thought it was coming. Looking at that game against Tottenham a few weeks ago was the sort of game where I felt, I've seen this before and know how it ends. It was a really bad day, obviously, for United, but a bad day for Erik Ten Hag. And it was one that I think shocked everybody. I think that was sort of the game where everyone felt that the season would start to kick on and he potentially could recover from this difficult start, but it's got worse. And yesterday, obviously, missing chances in the first half was unacceptable. I mean, there were 3 or 4 times where United should have scored and should have been 2-0 up at half-time. And then the decision at the end, obviously, is a bad one. But overall, I just think the challenges of the results, the challenges of the performance levels have meant that the owners have decided to sack Erik Ten Hag. And I don't think anybody will be truly shocked this morning after what happened yesterday.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, Gary. Do you think that despite the performance in the FA Cup final against Manchester City, that the end of last season would have and should have been the time to do this?
I mean, there'll definitely be now those that said that it should have happened will be feeling that they're proved right. However, you know, being one of the sort of probably many hundreds of thousands, millions of United fans who wanted to continue with Erik Ten Hag and thought that if you don't get a replacement that's at this moment in time, you know, standout replacement, give him an opportunity to succeed under a new structure with another transfer window with hopefully some good signings. I think the big shock for me is just how bad they've been with the new signings that have come in. I felt as though that they would have enough to be able to get a decent level of performance together, and that the smoother transfer window, the fact that Erik Ten Hag with some stability, and the fact that they're in 14th is just unacceptable. You can't be in 14th after nearly 9-10 games, really, with the level of spend that's occurred without being under significant pressure, and that's what's happened. I was hoping it would end differently. I think Manchester United fans were hoping that the manager would continue to keep his job and that the faith that was shown him in the summer would pay off, but it's just not been the case.
Gary, it's Stephen Warnock here. You've obviously been involved with Salford and you've had to make the decisions yourself before to sack managers. When you do that, have you already made the process clear as to who you want to approach that manager to make sure it's in place? Or do you just think this has got to the point where it's just been untenable for Ten Hag?
I suspect that Tottenham game a few weeks ago would have been a catalyst for them to start to think already about a new manager. It just felt that day like a day where you would start to look at your options. And being in that position, what you do, you look at who's available, obviously as part of the process of being an owner and being diligent, particularly the sporting department. And then you try and think of the timing. And ordinarily, believe it or not, in our position, and I don't know whether United have done it, they said you're half hoping that the manager can just turn it round and that they can get results and something miraculous happens and that basically you can start to win matches. But the fact of the matter is, you know, 99 times out of 100, I suspect, when you've made a decision, you feel as though the sort of, you know, the tide's against you, it just continues to go against you. And I think they've probably chosen a moment that maybe was decided a few weeks ago that, you know, the next big bad loss or bad result, we're probably going to have to act, and that's come yesterday. So, yeah, they will, I think, have started, definitely, I would imagine, the process of finding Erik Ten Hag's successor, because that Tottenham game a few weeks ago did feel like the end, even though it wasn't the end on that particular day.
You could come up with a cocktail of reasons or issues with Manchester United, Gary. From your perspective, what was more concerning, the club's recruitment or Erik Ten Hag's tactics over a long period of time?
I think the lack of identity and style is something that's been a mystery for the last 2.5 seasons, really, because even with, you know, let's say that the recruitment's been poor, which I don't think it's always been the best at United by, you know, a long stretch. It's been awful at times, but I do believe that there are a group of players there who can play a lot better than they are, and you can put an identity into them. I mean, yesterday I was shocked to see Eriksen and Casemiro in central midfield and Agati on the bench. You know, Agati was brought in as being the sort of successor to Casemiro, and obviously, you know, he's not started brilliantly for him. But I think things like that, if I was an owner looking at that, I would think, well, hang on a minute, you know, these two in midfield obviously are getting on in age, and you've got a lad that's been brought in for 40 million quid who basically has got legs. I would be asking questions around that as an owner. And I think the lack of style of play has been the biggest problem, and the lack of progression in the performance levels. It's a real struggle watching United play. And that's not changed really for the last 18 months. And that's been, I think, in the end, as big a problem as the results.
Just on the point about identity then, Gary, the statement says that Ruud van Nistelrooy is in interim charge, helped by the current coaching team. Ruud has been a manager, you know Ruud. Do you think he is able to quickly get an identity into these players?
I mean, it'd be almost impossible, wouldn't it, for him to do that in the next few days. I can't think that he's going to have. I mean, what's he going to be able to do? I mean, he can set the team up. He can set the team up differently. I mean, that's something that could happen. He could make the makeup of the team slightly different. But I mean, he's been on the bench with Erik ten Hag, so I'd be amazed if there was something drastic happened in the next few days in the games that he's got to manage. I think that ultimately there needs to be quite a lot of work done with those players, because at this moment in time they're desperately struggling. And, Erik ten Hag's not been able to get a consistent level of performance out of them. And a lot of those players now are his players. He was backed in the summer. And that ultimately, I think, is a big factor in this. So, Ruud van Nistelrooy will do his very best. I have thought for a number of months that looking at the players that United have, they may be better suited to going three at the back. Just purely because of the lack of a centre-back pairing, and the full-backs, to be fair, look better going forward than they do defensively. So maybe that could happen. Maybe that might give them a little bit of more comfort, because it would give them an extra body at the back, but also get the players into a system whereby they've got more support. And that's something I've thought for a few months, but whether Ruud does that and whether that's the right way to go, I'm not sure. It's ultimately, at this moment in time, something that we'll see against Leicester on Wednesday night, whether he did believe in what Erik was doing, because he'll pick a different team if he didn't.
Gary, just going back into the boardroom again to make this decision on the next manager coming in, with the money that Manchester United have spent in the summer, will the board be looking at it now and saying, you're going to have to work with this set of players? Can you work with them, or what's your long-term vision to the club? Because they've spent half a billion pounds on the squad, and is it going to have to be another rebuilding process for them?
I mean, in the immediate, I would say that those players, to be fair, would have to be worked with. And I don't think there's anybody that watches United that doesn't think that the players are better than they're showing, whether they're anywhere near good enough to get to the top. But yeah, I doubt that. And there's no chance of getting to the top with the squad that they've got. They're nowhere near good enough, the players that are in that dressing room. But they're better than 14th, and they're better than probably 6th. That group of players should be doing a lot better than they are. So I think what's going to need to happen to start, and Manchester United have been in this position many times over the last 10, 12 years, where you start to question every single player on the pitch with the actual results that occur. You lose faith in everybody. If a manager can come in and get a song out of them, and at least you can start to work out which are the ones that you want to keep on the train and which are the ones that you want to get off. I think to start to sort of, if you like, add to it again in the near term, I wouldn't probably, to be fair, change anything in the January transfer window. I think the new manager that comes in should probably be made to work with these players for 7 or 8 months, to work them out, to get close to them, to work out which are the ones that he wants to keep moving forward. And actually for the sporting department of the club, which is relatively new as well, to work that out.
Gary, appreciate that you've got a flight to catch, so we will let you go. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us live this afternoon.
You.